Good morning, everyone. Man, it's good to see you guys. Good looking people there. Right on. Ryan, right on. Yeah, it's good to have such a big group, man. Gee, it's been really good. Hope you guys have been having a good time too. And hopefully you enjoy my talk. You've come to the right talk, you know. We're really gonna be talking about rolling the good stuff. Oh wait, that's a different talk altogether. You know, a different talk. I don't know if we can tell who the potheads are here, I don't know, but that's for another talk. Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're not also talking about processing of barley. We're talking about prepping of fields. So we're talking about rolling fields for cereal production, for silage or for grain production. And I thought I'd just preface my talk with that because I have had confusion sometimes. You think about rolling cereals. My mind tends to go towards the processing, you know, like rolled oats or something like that, but definitely not that. A little bit about me before we get into the talk. My name is Trevor, and I've been with Farming Smarter since 2019, so this is my 4th year. I started right out of university, took my master's at the University of Lethbridge, and I was like a month after I did my presentation and finished that I started with Farming Smarter, and I haven't looked back. And we've been growing like crazy here. I manage the contract research business here. So any companies that want to contract with us, we have Solveris, George also contracted with us, and I'll get into that a little bit. He actually contracted us to do 2 years of previous study with rolling barley. So we contract with any companies that want to do work with us. Lots of pesticide, herbicide work, but we also do have some agronomy, lots of nutrients as well. And we have a big corn division or corn portfolio as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Any questions so far? Okay, perfect. We'll get right into it then. So I had mentioned we are talking about rolling cereals to prepare the field for silage production or grain production. And why are we doing that? So the main purpose is to push rocks into the soil. We're going to do a little demonstration. I've placed some rocks in the soil. And if anyone sees Toby, let them know that I am taking the rocks back out of the field. Don't want to get in trouble. It's unheard of to put rocks in the field, but we'll see that demonstration there and how that looks. But also, you want to break up any soil clods in the field or any root balls. An example might be if you're seeding into corn stubble, have a lot of root balls and soil clods that you might want to break up. And that's so that with the silage harvester or the combine that you can drop your header as low as you can, get as much biomass, hopefully increase your profit from that field, and ultimately not wreck your combine and have more costs, right? Or your silage harvester. And lots of guys have said, you know, if you do have custom harvesting coming in, they're wanting you to roll those fields so that they're not wrecking their equipment as well. And it's basically mandatory now for any custom guys to come in. They want those fields rolled. Is there anyone that is rolling their fields for silage production? Pulses? Awesome, a lot more than the last group. Awesome, almost no one in the last group. Right on. Well, hopefully you guys learned something and hopefully everyone else as well. So that was a little bit of the background. We've really seen, we started this trial 2 years ago with George. With Complete Agronomic Services. He contracted us, and he was telling us that his clients were rolling at all sorts of different stages, and they were impacting his tasks for scouting the fields, and it was just tough to really know when are they going to be rolling, how can he logistically plan to be in the fields and whatnot too. And yeah, they're just rolling at all sorts of times, and we weren't sure what impact that had on the crop. Whether you're rolling right after seeding or into the tillering stages, there's a whole range there, right? And could be impacting the crop.
And the other thing, Trevor, was there's a real myth out there that if you roll your barley, it'll stool out better, you get better yield.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So George is saying that we've heard from some farmers that with the cereals, if you roll them, then they tend to stool out more, tiller more, you get more biomass and more profit in the end. We really had no clue if that was true or not, and we still don't really have an idea of that. We are kind of seeing that is just kind of a myth. With this study, we're trying to actually measure that, and I'll get into that in a minute. And we found with this study that we have now that when we did our literature review for our proposal, we weren't really seeing any scientific recommendations or any kind of studies about this. So we figured there's a gap there. It seems maybe like a simple question or a simple problem, but if we don't know how we're harming our plants and our crop, then it's a pretty important question. And we've seen a lot more interest from guys and questions, and really wanting to nail that question down of when is the best time to roll your cereals. Before I get into this study still, I'll talk about the 2 years prior to this study and what we were seeing, some of the results, and why we made it into the bigger study that it is now. Yeah, and first too, I just want to thank George and Agronomic Services. You know, it's through those 2 years that we were able to move into this larger study and really try to nail down these questions and help farmers out. So it's much appreciated. So in year 1, there was little to no statistical significance between our treatments. We've seen some things, and it did intrigue us. So for example, we noticed there to be slightly more disease in the crop when we rolled at the 1 node stage. So when that shoot's really shooting up, and it's actually got those joints or nodes, as they're called. The height of the crop was significantly reduced, and it was a statistical significance. And you could see it just visually too. It was a small difference, only about like 10 centimeters, but it was a difference, right? And kind of not contradictory, but against our actual goal, right? To get as much biomass as we can. If we're reducing that height, it's going against our ultimate goal. The grain and silage yield were not different between each other. And that's one thing I forgot to mention was, so the treatments in the previous 2 years were, we had an untreated check, so it wasn't rolled at all. We rolled right after seeding, so prior to emergence. Then we rolled at the 1 leaf, 2 leaf, 3 leaf, and 4 leaf, and then at the 1 node stage. And we did see that the protein and TKW were reduced in the 1 node stage, which was quite interesting there. Just a small difference, but still, we were seeing some differences there. In year 2, we did see more prominent differences between our treatments and more statistical significance as well. One note to make with our treatments in year 2 was with the 4 leaf. We rolled that 4 leaf really close to the nodes coming out of the ground, so those nodes were right at the soil surface or they were just below the soil surface. And it was just logistics. It had rained a couple days before and we were trying to get in there, but it was too wet. And then with all the heat and whatnot too, the crop was just growing so fast. So we made a note of that, and we've seen some interesting results with that. With our plant counts, they showed a significant reduction in plant stand in the 1 node stage. And we actually did those plant counts like a week after we rolled that 1 node stage, which was interesting. In the first year, we counted kind of normal before it started tillering, but in the second year, we rolled after all of our rolling timings. And it did show that stand reduction, so we're actually killing plants when we get into that 1 node. Again, going against our ultimate goal of actually getting more yield, right? Height was significantly reduced in the 1 node stage from all treatments except for the 4 leaf stage. The 4 leaf stage was slightly smaller than the other treatments, and it was a little taller than the 1-node stage. So the 1-node and the 4-node were not statistically different, but there was a numerical difference there. And that was kind of the same story for the silage yield. The 1-node stage gave a statistically significant reduction in silage yield. The 4-leaf was just a little greater, and then the 1-node was different than all the other treatments, and it was actually reduced. The grain yields showed a significant reduction in the 4-leaf and the 1-node stage compared to all the other treatments. So that's kind of, oh, and then there was no difference in protein of silage or grain. So that's kind of telling us that if you're trying to push your rolling closer to that 1-node stage, so later in the tillering, you're risking damaging your crop. And we're definitely damaging your crop into the node stages. So that kind of gives us a picture of the 2 years there. And one of the awesome things with doing research and scientific investigation is we come up with more questions, right? And so we found out that we are hurting the crop. We could stop there, but we had more questions, right? So we wanted to go forward with the study. And with the 2 years, we were able to show that there is importance and that there are questions that still need to be answered. So we took this to ARDAR. We were able to get funded through ARDAR to make this bigger study. And we also had the Wheat and Barley Commission on board as well. So just a quick shout out to them and a thanks to them. They're the ones making this happen. And it's awesome to see that process too, right? Like we start with a contract research trial and we're not sure where it's going to go or what we're going to find out, and now it's blossomed into this bigger study that can hopefully help answer more questions and help more farmers get profit more, right?
What are the questions?
I will get into that a little bit more here. Yeah. Similar questions, but there was 3 large adaptations to the previous studies. So we were wondering, is there a difference between wheat and barley for silage production? Well, because both of those crops are used for silage production is what I mean. And we just weren't sure. So we have in here right now, we have Silage wheat over there, and then Austenson barley here. 2 of the bigger varieties used in the area for silage. We wanted to test those against each other and see what the impacts to crop are. Our expectation was that there wouldn't really be much difference, but the question hasn't been asked. We haven't actually looked into it, so how do we really know, right? Another major suggestion was to look at tillage practices. So is there a difference between no-till and tilled, conventional tillage? And again, it just hasn't been looked into. We weren't really sure. So, and there could be a difference in the ground, right? And the compaction or just the influence on the crop in general. So we wanted to look at that. A major suggestion from the Wheat and Barley Commission was to look at our stages, and we wanted to kind of change our stages anyways that we were rolling at. And one of the big ones was the coleoptile stage of the crop. If we roll at that timing, is there an impact to the crop? It's a sensitive time for the plant, and if we're influencing that coleoptile with the roller, maybe breaking it or creating compaction, maybe it will hurt the crop. So we added that into our treatments. So the treatments we have here now, we also have an untreated check. We have rolling right after seeding, 0 to 3 days after rolling about is our time frame. Then we have prior to emergence, when the coleoptile has emerged from the seed. Then we have 2 to 3 leaf, 3 to 5 tiller, and the 2-node stage. So we kind of combined those leaf stages. We weren't really seeing much damage from like the 1 leaf to the 4 leaf, so we just combined those and kind of went in the middle of those. And then the tiller staging, like I was saying, getting into those later tillage or tillering stages, we were seeing some damage, so we wanted to keep that in there. And so again, the big question, when to roll your cereal crop. data that we're collecting, we've collected plant counts already at the 3 leaf stage, and we're in discussions to figure out if we want to do count after we roll in our node stage, because we've seen that plant reduction, but it might just be visual ratings, and then that question will be answered with the yield too, right? So
There's a little bit more than just yield you gotta look at too, right?
totally, yeah.
I was playing around with this with a customer. It was actually quite a few years ago, but on wheat, durum, and barley under irrigation, we got it pinned down at the 3 to 4 leaf is the best time to do it.
Okay.
And it's night and day. Do half a circle, roll it. That crop at harvest time, everything's standing nice. The other half that isn't, you're lodged. You got junk on the ground,
And the other half was not rolled, or it was?
The other half was not rolled.
Ah.
The rolled was like this at harvest, so you could cruise right through. The stuff that wasn't rolled was lodged, and you know what that's like, trying to pick it up with a 40-foot header.
Totally. Yeah, good comment that there's more than just yield. There's also lodging and other things too. So we'll also be looking at lodging and doing a visual rating of that, see if there is a difference between the timings. So that's a good point.
Trevor, there was one other thing that we also noticed, and that was soil pulverization. So were we going to have soil erosion and that type of thing? So for
Totally.
us, that was a concern. We weren't going to roll right after, and trying to find that critical stage where if there was a heavy wind, that we weren't going to lose half the soil or topsoil.
Totally. Yeah. So the other comment, I don't know if did everyone hear him? Yeah. Awesome then. Yeah, exactly right. So soil erosion has to be taken into consideration, compaction, all those kind of things, right?
Did you do anything with triticale?
We have not yet. No. Yeah, and that's a good point, right? As we, like I said before, as we get into it, we start asking more questions about varieties and different crops and whatnot too, right? So after every time we roll, we get a soil sample and we do a gravimetric soil moisture, and that's just to kind of see what is the moisture when we roll. And we also do a penetrometer, and yeah, with the penetrometer, as you guys might know in soil compaction, the more moisture you have, the less compact the soil is at that time. One of the big things, and I don't know if you guys have seen that too, when you are rolling, you don't really want that field to be totally dry and rock hard, right? You want there to be a little bit of moisture in. Probably right now is quite ideal. The topsoil is dry, you're not making big ruts, but there's still enough moisture and the soil is soft enough that you're gonna push rocks in. You're gonna break up those clods a little better too. We're gonna evaluate plant injury. So is there more disease that comes in at one of the timings versus another? And could that impact thoughts about or planning for fungicides? We're also going to look at lodging as mentioned, and then we're going to try to answer that question of the tillering. So pretty soon here we're going to be doing a tillering count where we're going to pull 5 plants from each plot. We're going to count the tillers on there, see if we get a difference between the timings. Really trying to answer that one question of, does rolling increase the tillering of the plant? We're going to look at plant height at maturity. We're also going to do a biomass to calculate our silage yield. We're going to take grain yield, and then we're also going to do grain quality assessment for protein and TKW, and also the grade of the seed. We have collected penetrometer and soil moisture data so far, and I haven't really analyzed that data much. Just at a quick glance, it didn't really seem like that the roller was compacting the soil much. It was more of a location difference. That was another thing I forgot to mention, but with this study we have 3 locations. So we have Lethbridge, we have 2 sites, so one here and then one across the road, and then we have a Bow Island. No, yeah, Bow Island site.
So have you gone by texture, soil texture, like loamy clay or loam?
We were just trying to get different environments. Yeah, the Bow Island site is more sandy, so we're just trying to get different conditions for sure.
And you're logging that, your compaction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And right now too, plant counts, just a quick look at the data, there wasn't really any stark differences that I could pull out. Everything seemed to be very similar. So that's answering that question of that coleoptile stage. It doesn't seem like we have damaged that coleoptile stage right now. And as we walk down, we can see that there's really no difference visually right now. And then we're also in discussions, like I was saying, if we want to do a plant count or really assess the plant stand after we roll in that 2-node and the tiller stage too, because we did see that impact in the previous years. Visually right now, as you guys walk down and we look, we can see that the tillering stage is laid down still, and it looks like some of the plants are damaged. And so if you want to come look at the table too, I laid out some plants and for all the treatments, and I think we can definitely see some damage. So I have barley and then wheat on the papers. And you can definitely see that the stems have been bent and they're a little scraggly and whatnot. So I think we are getting some damage in that 3 to 5 tiller, but really no damage up to that point. And I assume we're gonna get some damage in the 2-node. We're probably gonna be rolling that late next week. The nodes are just coming out. Yeah, and that brings me close to the end here. We're gonna do a demonstration. And the main takeaway is that we are seeing damage from rolling. And it's a little, well, it is following the trend that we kind of figured. And our recommendation would be to be rolling in those leaf stages as the data that we have right now. And to be cautious about rolling before the crop is up, like the comment was made, to reduce soil erosion and think about all those activities going on, right? And hopefully if we can nail down that window of rolling, it might help with other logistics and activities in the field, actually have it timed out and separated a bit more. Yeah, so we'll take some time to go look at the crop and whatnot. Any questions, any comments?
On the data for the last few years, was there any time, or was any sort of indication that it might have been a better yield compared to the control? And then you spray not rolled.
Not statistically significant, no. And numerically, I didn't see anything that was greatly different. So my inclination is to say no. The untreated check was doing just as good as the leaf stages.
So there's no benefit that we can see so far of rolling barley from a yield standpoint. How bad is it?
So far, no. Yeah.
From a silage standpoint. So the only reason you don't roll it after seeding is for wind erosion.
So another comment here, if anyone's trying to listen in, was the main concern is don't roll right after seeding, mainly for wind erosion. That would be my thought.
We live down near High River, and we roll it the day after we seed it.
Yeah.
Always done.
Yeah. Logistically, probably a bit easier as well, right? You've worked it into your program and your protocols. You know right after seeding, there's going to be a tractor and a roller in the field, right? And I would probably just think about your soil conditions, your fields. If you have lots of stubble, there's all sorts of factors that play in there, right? So mainly I would suggest keeping those things in consideration and going off of what conditions you have, for sure.
Before Trevor had a rock, you're always going to roll.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, you don't want those equipment getting broken. And sorry, what was your?
Yeah, you ran grain and that. What about for silage yield? Are you noticing a difference?
So the question was, are we noticing any difference for silage yield? In the first year, we didn't really see a difference. In the second year, we did see a reduction, a statistically significant reduction in the 1-node stage. And also a numerical reduction in the 4-leaf because it was rolled so close to the node stages. So we are seeing a reduction, and grain yield as well was reduced, similar. So,
Did you say
yeah.
you've measured the moisture, like does it actually cap or seal the soil to keep the moisture in, or is there any measure?
We haven't measured that. We were mainly just capturing the data of what is the soil moisture when we rolled.
Okay.
Was it really dry at all of our rollings and then one rolling was really wet, or was everything relatively the same so that we can kind of rule that out? So it's more just can we rule it out as one of our factors.
I know, like for grain, we've the way we roll has changed. We skip a row every time. Like instead of going back and forth across the field, we'll skip a row, because if you turn at the wrong time with that roller, it really pulverizes the soil and actually damages the crop. as well.
Damages, yeah.
So we'll do every one, and then from the other end start working back.
Oh, okay.
We end where we started, kind of thing. Then. Just because.
Just to make a bigger turn.
Bigger turn, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, trying to take into consideration how often you turn, how sharp you're turning to reduce damage on your crop.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
Because it does tear plants out. If that back roller starts reversing, it'll literally tear, even if they're out, it'll actually tear plants out of the ground and
Yeah.
damage them enough that they're gone.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, that's the main thing is actually damaging those plants too. So I think a good thing to take into consideration is the moisture in your field. If it's too wet, you're going to get mud on your roller, and then we seen it last year. We rolled when the soil was a little too wet, and we seen it was pulling leaves off, and they were stuck to our roller. And so fortunately, we were able to roll a couple other plots a couple days later when it was a little drier. Yeah.
Yeah, and we noticed too that if there's any kind of buildup on the roller, it really doesn't do a good job of rolling either.
For sure.
You almost need a scraper across it to kind of clean it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, let's, is there any other quick questions, comments? All right, we're gonna get Ryan to do a demonstration for us. So he's gonna roll a couple of these border plots with some strategically placed rocks. Oh, it's already down from just a tractor tire. There's more in there too. Yeah, and then we can get in there and pull up some plants if you want. It's just a border, so we can come and look at what impact we're having on the crop.